I was born in Port Moresby in Papua New Guinea, and that's where my mom's family's from. They're from this village called Uratai, and my dad, he's Australian. My dad's a musician, so he was like playing this gig, and then they saw each other or whatever, and then they went and had a cigarette or something, and then apparently that was it, and then they were just into each other.
I'm originally from Buka Island, a little village called Lontis Village. I came down here with my husband in 1990 when the crisis started on Bougainville, the war between Bougainville and Papua New Guinea. Earlier on in our relationship, Brian and I knew that we come from two different cultures. We, in a way, decided that I was not going to force my culture and custom upon him, and vice versa. Thank you. Come on. Okay, let's eat.
Yes, here I do.
Yum, thank you.
I grew up in Collingwood, in the flats, and also here in this house. My grandma's been a huge influence on my life. She became my main caretaker when I was around 7. I didn't have any brothers and sisters, and I wasn't really around a lot of other kids. I was really quite introverted and in my own world. I really gravitated towards visual arts. My dad has definitely been a source of creative inspiration. He was Yothi Yindi for a time and has played in a lot of bands.
The landowners were not happy with the agreement Rio Tinto or Bougainville Copper had at that time. When things got a bit scary, we had to leave. We drove past and about 12 people came out of the bush. Brian started to accelerate, and when he looked through his revision mirror, he could see them lining up the M16 towards us, and he just went zoom, stop. A number of them came towards the passenger's side of the car and unfortunately got the butt of the gun on my head and started thumping me. I think it was probably because I was married to a white man. I have yet to go back and see these people, but that's part of my plan.
I don't really know my mum very well. There's this one photo of her which, as soon as I got it, I just loved it. She used to be so cool in the 80s because she had this like acid wash double denim outfit on and she just looked really fly. I thought, maybe I'll try and dress up as her, try and recreate the portrait. Some of them look quite freakishly like her.
To prove to the family how much he loved me and he wanted to marry me, he was willing to give up everything to follow the custom, which then led to a traditional wedding. Mom was dying of cancer, so we went back to be with her. A couple of hours before she was buried, we had to perform the ceremony. Because she was a chief, she went through her royal burial in which she was suspended from the ceiling. An auntie of mine climbed up, opened the cape, and laid it on my mom's body. Then Brian had to climb up and placed a 50 kina on mom's hand and remove the cape. And before he came down, everybody clapped and they said, "We now have witnessed the swearing of the ceremony that he has accepted. The wedding is on." And this is the cape that was the one.
I knew from a very young age that I was not a white person, and it became obvious to me from primary school. I was different and I got quite racially taunted in like the early years of primary school, and that kind of like freaked me out. Going back to Papua New Guinea was like really instrumental in having peace with that. Before that, I had a lot of dysphoria or not really understanding where I belong. People would just call me black, and I was like, okay, I'm black. Well, it's like kind of like these labels that other people put on you, and you're just like, oh, well, I guess that's what people think of me. So I just take that for what it was, but it wasn't really like coming from me and being like, this is who I am.
I'm really connected to this one, which it brings back a lot of good memories this time, happy memories of my mom and the family, and how proud I am to belong to a culture that's still living. This was the place that had the objects that connected me with home, and my only means of connecting with my family. Not only the family caught up in the crisis, it's also the family who had passed on.
Tape performance was kind of an exploration of feeling caught between two worlds, being a mixed person. A certain group of people would see you as something, another group of people would see you as another thing. You kind of feel stuck between both, or that you don't really belong to either.
In Buka, it's a matriarchal system. The woman, being the chief, is not expected to take part in any ritual nor anything. She is a sacred thing, almost like a holy being that needs to be respected. As long as you have that, your family, your tribe and everything and your land is secure. It is the second in line, and the ones after her that are more powerful, or the ones that are now known as the keeper. And in that position, I'm that person. When my son was born, I knew that he was going to go to my sister's family. There was a great danger of them losing the land if my sister didn't have a son. And I was okay with that. I fulfilled my family's wish. My son was going to now become the chief. His generation was secure. The land was still theirs. But as a mother, it was the hardest decision. As a mother, you can never ever deny that longing and the void in you.
You sure you don't want some kambang?
No.
Do you want to stop?
No, it's okay. It will go away.
What is it?
Number 2 line.
It's I've touched the sensitive area back home, and that's where I get this.
Number 2 line, the ancestors.
It's just one of those strange things I go through. Okay, that will do. Just emotional hoo-ha thing. Sorry.
The ancestors are with you here now?
Yeah. And I get attacked from time. Sometimes just go in a fit. But he's trained in a way where before I go into a fit, he pulls my head and
puts lime on her.
I put lime and cleanses me.
I want to spend some more time there in the future. It's really hard for me to be there though. The family is like really complicated and I don't have a lot of independence. I really have a really superficial kind of like understanding of traditional culture. The church and religion is a huge part of the culture. I felt like I can't access some of my culture kind of because of that. Yeah, and also just like not being there, not really like speaking the language.
I love going to the city and it's like a whole cluster of beings. In my own mind, the lights and the buildings, they compensate for the trees. In the trees and the bush you have wildlife, you have birds and everything. Whereas in the city, the trees are the buildings, the birds and the animals are the people.
Contemporary art is the way in which I identify with my culture. I have a lot of disconnection to my culture because I haven't lived there. I'm not really in much contact with that side of my family. So I Googled traditional face paint. The first thing that came up was this like yellow type of paint that people would wear that was like this. And I tried to find something that was like close to my village and stuff. And so I used that as this recurring symbol in my work. My performance work has mainly been about my body and gender, race, and sexuality, and the ideas that people construct about certain people. A lot of the work is about critiquing stereotypes about people, and I can only really do that about me a lot of the time.
The buka we go back to is not the buka we left behind. People now have very little respect for the culture, the custom, and for the elder. And I guess because they've seen so much pain and war and fighting, I'm still determined to go home. Try to bring back some of the culture that was there that prevented people from fighting. And we've announced it to the family. their way of accepting us, the idea of us returning, they decided to make us a garden.
Melbourne feels like my home in some ways, and then in other ways it doesn't. It feels like my home partly because I grew up here and my family lives close to here, and it's like been a big part of my life. But at the same time, I feel a little stagnant here, and I want to be in different places and be around different people and cultures and projects. And I'm going on exchange to Montreal, Canada in 3 weeks.
My life journey is I've started in Buka, I'm on my way back there. And on a more contemporary sense, home is where the heart is and where Brian is. Brian and I are